It's time to go last-minute portal shopping for a few Big Ten teams. Let's talk about them. And welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR. We are presented and brought to you by FanDuel. Really appreciate you being here with us. Got a lot to talk about in this episode. We are going to talk about the last-minute shopping in the portal for some Big Ten teams. Are Big Ten players safe? There's been a lot of talk about what's going on out there with Darian Mensah, comparisons to what happened last year with Xavier Lucas and that kind of stuff. Damon Williams kind of fits into this as well. Are Big Ten players safe? We're going to talk about that. And then my 5 key questions that need to be answered to figure out who is going to win the national championship on Monday night. Please do like, subscribe, do all that good stuff for us here on the Big Ten Huddle. If you're on podcast, 5-star rating and review always helps as well. And we are going to get right into the episode. Get right into the episode here because, boy, do we have a lot to get to and a lot to discuss. So let's go ahead and get into it. The transfer portal is closing. Actually, it has closed at this point. You could still see a few more guys jump into the portal because they just had to submit their requests by Friday night at midnight, and teams or programs have 48 hours to submit those requests. So you could still see some players enter the portal by Sunday night, but there would probably be some rumors and probably be some talk about them going into the portal. So the way it looks right now, there are guys in the portal, but there are also teams that still have needs. And right now, there are Big Ten teams that still have needs. I mean, this is like your last-minute shopping. You know, I remember one time I went to Kroger because I needed contact solution, and I got there 5 minutes before. 5 minutes before Kroger was closing, and I was running inside and saying, "Don't close the door yet. Don't close the door." That's what these Big Ten teams are doing here. They're saying, "Don't close the door yet. Don't close the door." I mean, obviously, what is there at the portal is there. The products that are going to happen are there, but there are Big Ten teams that are going after some of these players to possibly get them on their team for next season. And one of those players is Jordan Seaton. Jordan Seaton, the offensive tackle for Colorado, left tackle these past 2 years. He's from Washington, D.C. He's going to be a junior next year, number 5 player in the On3 industry transfer portal rankings. He started 9 games this season, only allowed 2 sacks and over 300 pass blocking snaps, and he actually had the highest pass blocking grade among all Big 12 tackles, and he was 12th in all of the Power 4. Really good tackle. And Jordan Seaton, I mean, is he, life-changing type of guy? No, but he's going to be drafted highly, and he's got all the traits and everything that you want. And he's done well at Colorado. Like I said, only allowed 2 sacks last season. I believe both of those were in one game too. So only one game he actually allowed a sack, 2 sacks in that game. But Jordan Seaton has done a good job at Colorado, and he's looking to go someplace where he's going to get some more NIL money. That's very evident. He's starting the bidding at like $2.5 million is apparently what the rumor is being spread around right there. And he also wants to enhance his NFL draft exposure with a more major program like a Texas or like an Oregon. And those are the 2 teams that are being talked about right now the most. Now, he did take a visit to Mississippi State. Don't think that's where he's going to go, but that's kind of where he got his visit started. And then Miami is apparently another place he's going to be going to visit this weekend. Makes sense. They're in the national championship. Go visit them. And really, honestly, it doesn't get much bigger of a stage than the national championship in college football. So you could really help out yourself if Miami does that again next year. And Oregon and Texas are also working to set up some visits. But another team that is working to set up a visit that not everybody is talking about is Maryland. Maryland is, in fact, trying to get Jordan Seaton on campus. Maryland was a player in the Jordan Seaton sweepstakes out of high school with him being from the D.C. area there, and Maryland wants to be a part of this again. Is Maryland going to come out with the, $3.5 million NIL offer? Probably not, but they could come at him and say, look, this is a place where you can be the star player. You're going to play in big games. You're going to play against, top tier teams that are going to have top tier talent that the NFL draft scouts are going to be at. And this could be a place where you can make that happen. Doesn't really seem to go with what he wants, but maybe he wants to go back home. Maybe Jordan Seaton wants to play back home. He's been tired of going out to Colorado, and maybe that'll happen. We'll see. The second player that a Big Ten team might go after or is targeting in the transfer portal is Tennessee's linebacker Arion Carter, who just entered the transfer portal after going back on his decision to enter into the NFL draft. Apparently, the kind of story here is the senior next year apparently was not satisfied with where he might go in the NFL draft, and so he wants to come back for another year and try to get improve his draft stock, which he does need to do. He did not have a great season last year. 76 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble. He was 51st in PFF defensive grade among SEC linebackers. Not all linebackers nationally. SEC linebackers, he was 51st in PFF defensive grade, and he was the lowest PFF defensive grade of the starters on the Tennessee linebacker unit. So not a great year for him. He wants to come back. He wants to improve his draft stock. He did say that he would love to play in the SEC, but he is willing to go anywhere. The two teams that have been dubbed as teams to watch in this situation are Alabama and Texas A&M, but a Big Ten team that does need some linebacker help after losing Jimmy Rolder to the draft and Cole Sullivan in the portal to Oklahoma is Michigan. I would not be surprised to see Michigan go after Carter here in this situation at all. Michigan's already been trying to go after a few linebackers behind the scenes. Going to talk about that in the next segment, but Michigan does need help here, and I would not be surprised to see them go after him, especially with the new coaching staff there, the defensive staff that could definitely talk him into, hey, we're going to put you in good situations and you're going to get noticed for the draft. All right. Next one, number 3 is Mason Clint. I've been forgetting to change there we go. I had that one. There we go. I forget to change the thing. How dare I? Southern Miss defensive lineman Mason Clint, who is being targeted by Oregon. Now, he is from Mississippi. He's done his time in community college. He's done his time at Southern Miss, kind of hopped around a bunch of different places. He's actually outside the top 2,000 nationally in transfer portal rankings. He's going to be a senior next year. Only 16 tackles, 1 pass deflection, a 58.5 PFF defensive grade, which is not exactly great. That's even lower than what Carter's was. But he wants to continue to move up. He wants to try and be a depth piece at a program, and that's exactly what Oregon needs right now. Is Oregon needs some depth pieces on that defensive line. They've brought back all the starters on their defensive line, which is fantastic, but they're also losing all their depth pieces because these are guys that thought, hey, next year I will become the starter. And with Bear Alexander, Amari Washington coming back, that doesn't look to be the case. So do I see Mason Clint being the kind of guy that's going to come in and play 10, 15, 20 snaps for Oregon? No, I think he's probably going to be a depth piece if he does come. That's maybe 1 to 5 snaps a game, but that's still somebody that you need. And those are still snaps that you don't have to put Bear Alexander and Amari Washington out there for. So Oregon's also looking at a couple other guys too. It's not just him. Mississippi State, Terrence Hibbler Jr., they're going after, and then a guy from Jacksonville State, Daryl Prater, they're going after as well. All right, next one here is the Nebraska transfer on the defensive line, Keona Davis, who is currently being targeted by Illinois. Now, Davis from Arizona down there. He's a defensive lineman, going to be a junior next year. He's outside the top 700 in the transfer portal, but he is definitely a guy with some size who can definitely come in and start for a team like Illinois, who is looking for some more defensive line help right now. He had 32 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss last season, 1.5 sacks, 10 QB pressures as well. And he looks like somebody who could do a good job for Illinois or whatever team might try to pick him up. Davis said there's a rumor out there. He didn't say this. Davis, there's a rumor that he was going to enter into the transfer portal last year when Nebraska went through some of their coaching changes, but he decided to stick it out and come back because he saw the opportunity for an elevated role this year. Things obviously don't work out all that well with John Butler as the defensive coordinator, and Davis has decided that he's had enough and he wants to go into the portal, maybe go to a better defensive situation, maybe get into a better opportunity for himself. And so right now he is currently visiting Miami. Similar situation here with Jordan Seaton. I mean, when you watch this Miami team and kind of what they've become, they've already taken 1 transfer defensive lineman and Jarquez Carter, but I find it I find it hard to believe that he's not going to come off this visit to Miami, especially around the national championship and everything, and not commit to them. Now, if he does not commit right away, by all means, I think Illinois has a good shot here, especially if they can get him on campus. But right now, there's no prediction for Davis or anything. And Illinois might have a shot here. We'll see. Maybe sometimes these predictions don't always come out until a little bit later on, but could be a situation here for Illinois. But I know that is definitely somebody they're going to want to look at and try to get as the portal has closed, and they are in need of a lot of defensive line help right now, and Davis would certainly be a big piece to help with that. Finally, we talked about him before. Going to bring him up once again. Makhi Frazier, the Michigan State tailback, who I predicted to go to Indiana, and that prediction is looking pretty good right now. Steve Wiltfong agreed with me. One of his articles on 3. I say agreed with me like he referenced me or something. He didn't reference me. We're just in lockstep right now. Looking like Makhi Frazier is going to be the guy there at Indiana, number 113 player in the transfer portal, number 9 running back. And it sounds like Indiana may have slow played this a little bit with Frazier, may have, kind of tried to do their due diligence a little bit with maybe some other running backs. And then now sounds like they're coming back to Frazier and saying, hey, we do want you in our number 1 transfer portal class in college football. And it looks like Frazier wants to be there as well. He had spent some time with Ohio State a little bit, but Ohio State took Jacoby Johnson. And so it looks like Makhi Frazier has kind of become the guy that Indiana wants to take. And I think it would be a nice ad for Indiana. He had a little bit of inconsistent pass blocking and some inconsistent play at Michigan State. He struggled with an injury there at one point. But I think a lot of that was just the offensive line. I cannot tell you how many times I watched Michigan State last year and just saw that atrocious offensive line play and thought to myself, how is this? How did anybody assemble these group of guys and think this was Big Ten level offense? It wasn't, quite frankly, it wasn't. And it was honestly sad to watch a lot of the time. It's kind of amazing that they gave Iowa as good of a game as they did with that. But, that's how it goes. And we'll see if Michigan State can help correct that offensive line this season, especially if they have somebody like Makhi Frazier coming back. So please do subscribe, do all that good stuff. Comment down below your thoughts on these 5 guys. You think these 5 guys are going to any of these Big Ten programs? And if you are somebody that you still want your team to go after some people. I know Ohio State fans still want some offensive linemen and stuff like that. If you have somebody else that you want your team to go after, would love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. All right, going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Is anyone safe in college football anymore? I mean, is anybody safe at this point? If you look around at what's going on in college football right now, you look at the Darian Mensah situation with what's going on at Duke, and you're probably thinking to yourself, holy cow, yes, the transfer portal is closed, but what's going to stop teams from coming after our quarterback? What's going to stop teams from coming after our star running back? I mean, this is exactly the situation that Wisconsin found them, not exactly, but a very similar situation that Wisconsin found themselves in last year, where they thought we're going to hold on to Xavier Lucas because he can't go to the transfer portal, and then the transfer portal closes and he still leaves. Duke thinks we have Darian Mensah set up with a contract here, and we're going to hold on to Darian Mensah, but that's not going to happen, it looks like here. Now, obviously, we'll learn more as things are going on, but if you don't know what I'm talking about, news broke on Friday that, about midday, that it didn't look like Darian Mensah was going to stay with Duke, that he was going to enter into the transfer portal. And so you start putting a few things together. You say, okay, well, what teams out there need a quarterback? Oh, yeah, Miami. Miami is the group out there that needs a quarterback. And I think a lot of Big Ten fans right now, and people, especially Washington fans, are looking at the situation and saying, holy cow, thank goodness for the Big Ten and what they did with Damon Williams, because the Big Ten in Washington was able to hold on to Damon Williams. And maybe, some Washington fans don't want Damon Williams back. I get that. Look, I'm not blaming you, but this is a situation here where this is conference on conference play between Miami and Duke here. And Miami looks like they're going to be successful in essentially taking Darian Mensah from Duke and bringing him over there. Look, Darian Mensah, he is in the second year of a 2-year deal with Duke that pays him about $4 million annually. All right. That is a fantastic deal. Duke putting their money where their mouth is. And Darian Mensah is a fantastic quarterback. All right. He struggled against Illinois early on in the season, but that was also when Illinois was at full strength. They had their secondary was rocking and rolling. They had healthy guys. And Illinois, when they have a healthy secondary with Aaron Henry there as the defensive coordinator, it is pretty terrifying. Unfortunately for them, they lost Xavier Scott. Don't even get started on all that. But Darian Mensah, the moral of the story here is he is a very good quarterback, and he helped Duke, albeit with some weird, tiebreaker rules this year. He did help Duke win the ACC. And so Darian Mensah is obviously a popular quarterback. Like most rev share contracts that he has, Duke's deal prohibits another university from using Mensah's NIL, a legal entanglement that must be resolved if a team does want to take Darian Mensah away from Duke. And you might be able to guess who this team is at this point. It's Miami. Miami is the team that does not have a quarterback right now, and they want to go after somebody and essentially take their quarterback, which, it is the transfer portal. Guys can leave and guys can do stuff, but if you don't have the security of a contract, then a lot of, it really is just open market, open free agency every single year on every single team. The G5 has been dealing with this for a few years now, where essentially you just lose your best players each year to the better teams. But when this starts seeping into, a team that literally won the ACC, yes, I know they were not actually the best team in the ACC, but they literally just won the ACC. This could happen to a Big 12 team or something like that. This gets really, really scary for teams in the possibility of losing one of their best players, whether the transfer portal is open, whether it's not, whether you have a contract, whether you don't. And right now it looks like, according to some of the reporting by Ross Dellinger, that there is a buyout in place for Darian Mensah. And if Mensah's new school, i.e., Miami here, that would possibly have a value of about $4 million just to buy Mensah out of that contract. It will be reduced with the revenue share pool. That will reduce Miami's revenue share pool, but Miami doesn't care about the revenue share pool. Nobody cares about the revenue. Like none of this house settlement stuff matters right now because the CSC has decided not to do anything. And all they are doing is setting themselves up for later on when the Big Ten and the SEC separate from everybody else. I did a video on that yesterday. You can go check that out when we talk more about that. But Miami, they have the money to pay the buyout. They have the money to pay top dollar NIL. I mean, look at this tweet here from Liam Blutman. Now, Liam Blutman is from Barstool, and he does get a lot of good information, and a lot of what he has put out there has proven to be true. So he said he's going to do some digging, and Miami's desperation move for Mensah apparently includes this. If you're not, if you're listening on podcast, I'll read it to you. A buyout for his Duke contract to terminate it, paying around $10 million total to make it happen, I assume to make the contract go away, to buy it out altogether. Country club housing, I assume that means for his family, an Adidas deal, and a campaign, possibly something like that going on here. And then this is the big kicker right here. Sister supposedly gets a full ride NIL. She's a current soccer player at Oregon. Could she transfer to come over from Oregon to go to Miami and, essentially get some NIL as well here? I mean, all of this is a crazy situation of what's going on in college football, and shows that if a team is desperate enough and they have enough money, they can go after just about anything. And thankfully for, the Big Ten in this Damon Williams situation, we figured out that the Big Ten does actually have things in place to help these kind of situations. As soon as Damon Williams said that he was going into the transfer portal, we got news from Washington that they were going to fight this. They were not going to let this happen easily. Now, my LSU is not Miami. Okay. Do not get it twisted. These are not the two, the same two. And this was also a different time when LSU could say, okay, it's too much. It's too much. Let's just go with Sam Levitt. Let's just go with one of these other guys that were still available at the time. But the biggest difference here is the agreement for Damon Williams had a Big Ten template document used by all league members for built-in situations just like this. We don't hear anything about an ACC template, ACC involvement, or anything like that, especially in this situation, with this being essentially ACC on ACC crime, right? All right, it's not actually crime. I mean, it's not like they're breaking laws here, but they are breaking a contract. All right, so the word crime feels fitting. Nobody's going to prison, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it just kind of feels fitting at this point in time. The deal does prohibit a player, the Damon Williams deal prohibited a player from entering the portal once it was signed. It wasn't just like you can't go to another school. It wasn't just like, buy this out or whatever, and then you can go to that school. No, this completely prohibited Damon Williams from even entering into the portal, and Washington set the example for every single team, every single conference out there to say, this is how you make a contract that another team cannot break. Now, if this was Miami, would they have found a way to break it? Would they have made this, put this together? Maybe, but Darren Heitner, the guy, the same guy that helped Xavier Lucas get away from Wisconsin and go to Miami, he was the same lawyer that got involved in this situation with Damon Williams, and they weren't able to break it. They weren't able to get Damon Williams out of Washington to wherever he was going. We presume LSU, but wherever he was going. And in that situation, you think, okay, well, the Big Ten has these contracts set up in place better than other conferences do out there right now. And this is one of the reasons why, like, I understand people when they say, well, I'm not a conference fan. I don't root for my conference. I get that. Okay. But then you look at situations like this with the ACC, where the ACC doesn't care. And in fact, the ACC, they are begging for teams to stay in their conference so much that they are giving all of the playoff money to whatever team wins those games and makes it further in the playoff. Miami has kept all of the playoff money that has come to them because they don't have to worry about having to share it or anything like that. That's why it's important that you have a good conference in place, is because your conference is supposed to support one another. Your conference is supposed to make everybody stronger by having the conference be stronger. And yes, I get it. You don't want to be the SEC and, chant SEC in stadiums and all this stuff. I get that. But if you are actively working against one another, if you are actively working to hurt one another, to not build each other up, then all you're doing is you're setting yourself up with a bad conference around you. You're not going to play quality competition. And look at Miami. Miami had to get a win over Notre Dame to get them into the playoffs. They had to get by BYU to lose. And that's the only reason not the only reason. That's the only reason they have the opportunity to get into the national championship right now, is because they had to have all of these other factors happen with them. Ohio State, when they lost 2 games 2 years ago, they controlled their own destiny still. They lost to Oregon and they lost to Michigan. Although Michigan wasn't a very good team, Ohio State still hosted a home playoff game, because that's how much respect people have for the brand of Ohio State. Yes, don't get me wrong. You create your own brand, but B, the respect for the conference of the Big Ten as well. And Indiana got that benefit of the doubt last year as well, with their schedule not being maybe as strong as some other people would like. And so the big question here is, does this put the Big Ten in a bad situation, right? Could this possibly happen to the Big Ten? And something that's not being talked about a whole lot nationally out there, but it is known by, people in Michigan circles and stuff like that, is you almost saw something like this happen, the transfer portal cycle already, where Michigan was going after Wisconsin linebacker Mason Posa, which if you played Wisconsin this year, freshman linebacker Mason Posa is a beast. He's going to be one of the best linebackers in the Big Ten next year, could be one of the best linebackers in the country. He's just that good. He's going to be a huge part for Wisconsin. But like I said, Michigan needs a linebacker right now. They need a linebacker bad. They need a good linebacker bad. And so they were trying to go after Mason Posa. Well, when they were going after Mason Posa, there was actually some legitimate interest from Posa to say, maybe I do want to go to Michigan. Maybe I do want to take this big pay raise that they're going to give me. He already got a pay raise, and he already signed some new contract language from Wisconsin, which made this far too difficult for this to happen. Now, We don't get a whole lot of the story because this isn't a quarterback, right? And this obviously did not escalate to the level of everything that is escalating right now with Darian Mensah. But the point is that this, there was something like this trying to happen. Excuse me, just days until the portal was ending with Mason Posa, but it wasn't able to happen because the Big Ten has their contract in place. They have things, working behind the scenes. They have all these things happening. So that way teams can't just go out and steal other players from their teams. Now, would this happen if this was Miami going after Damon Williams? Maybe. Who knows, right? But what we can be encouraged by here is that the Big Ten is setting themselves up in a good place where even if Miami does come after, or LSU or somebody does come after your quarterback, your linebacker, whatever it might be, with a very enticing deal, if they've signed a contract, that language, that wording is going to be in place by courtesy of the Big Ten to keep them on your team and not be able to go elsewhere. So, basically, that's how the whole Darian Mensah situation, impact it kind of touches the Big Ten situation. Obviously, we'll learn more as things continue to go on. But I just wanted to put that out there because I did think it was very interesting, and I did think it was something that we need to talk about. So I'll be right back after this. Indiana, Miami coming up Monday night. Indiana favored in this one on FanDuel by 8.5. That number has stayed pretty solid. Opened at 7.5. It went up to 8.5. And at this point, it's been pretty solid. I can't imagine this line is going to move again. Maybe when we get closer to game time, it does, but it's set at a really good number right now. And honestly, this is going to be a really, really interesting football game to watch between the Indiana Hoosiers and the Miami Hurricanes. So much so that I have a family member. He's a cousin-in-law who was driving down. My in-laws were just telling me this the other day. He is driving down from Indiana to Miami. They are not buying tickets. They are just going to, go around the stadium and get tickets. Have you ever done that? Has anybody ever done that before? I don't think I would have the gusto, the guts to do something. I'm one of those people. It's like, if I'm going, I got to have the tickets. I got to have everything ready. But boy, those tickets are crazy expensive. I think last time I looked, they were like the lowest ticket was like $3,000. So boy, but Miami fans, Indiana fans, they're going to be there. These are two rabid fan bases, especially Indiana right now with, how much success they're having in that they've never had before in college football. So I expect this is going to be a huge game with a lot of Indiana fans there, even it being essentially a home game. I mean, it's at the home stadium for Miami. Still think that there's going to be a lot of Indiana fans there. I would not be surprised if they have 40% there, maybe even 50-50. Dare I say 60% Indiana. That's just how crazy these Indiana fans are, and crazy in a good way. I'm not insulting you by this, Indiana fans, but I have 5 questions I want to get to for this Indiana-Miami game, and I believe the answer to these 5 questions will determine the game between Indiana and Miami. So let's just go ahead and get it right into it. And some of these are about Indiana, some of these are about Miami. I just think that these are 5 questions that are going to completely decide the game, in my opinion. So question number 1, can Carson Beck still be the best version of himself? I believe in postseason play, we have seen the absolute best out of Carson Beck that we have ever seen in his career. He is running for first downs. He is not turning the ball over. He is doing a fantastic job, throwing with timing and anticipation. He's doing such a great job right now and being poised and mature back there in the pocket that it's really elevating this Miami team to a whole nother level. We've known all season Miami has a great defense. They have freaks on the defensive line. If you can just get that running game going, you can play ball control and just tear apart whatever team you're going up against. Maybe you don't win by 70 on the scoreboard, but it's going to feel like you won by 70 with how physical and tough this Miami team is. What did this Miami team need? They needed a quarterback who would be able to pick up first downs with his legs when the offense gets in trouble to keep the drive alive, and they needed a quarterback who is not going to turn the ball over. Well, great news for Miami. Carson Beck's been doing that in the postseason. Yards per carry in the regular season, Carson Beck had 2.6 yards per carry. In the postseason, 3.7 yards per carry. He's been fantastic in only 3 games, 3.7 yards per carry. Turnover worthy throw percentage, turnover worthy pass. Turnover worthy play percentage. So this doesn't just include turnover, possible interceptions. This also includes if you fumble the ball or something like that. In the regular season, Carson Beck, it wasn't bad, 2.3%. That's honestly not bad. I think a lot of times people give Carson Beck a really bad rap because of the Louisville game with the 4 interceptions, but honestly, he's not done a terrible job of turning the ball over this season. Some inopportune ones, sure, but he's not been terrible with that. But in the postseason, he's been excellent. 0% of his dropbacks have resulted in turnover-worthy plays. And what I mean by that is not that the turnover does happen, but it's a strong possibility that it is. Think dropped interceptions, think fumbled snap, think fumbled transition, handoff, whatever it might be, that kind of stuff, but it doesn't go to the other team. That's what this stat is, and Carson Beck has done a fantastic job of not turning the ball over in the postseason, picking up first downs, and that is exactly what this Miami offense needs to do to support this nasty defense that Miami has. And when they do that, it works out really well for them. So we'll see if they can do that, if Carson Beck can continue to do that against Indiana and their very disruptive defense. Now, staying on the offensive side, but going over to the Indiana side, my second question, can Fernando Mendoza continue his incredible accuracy? It's not just been in the postseason, folks. He has had incredible accuracy all season long. 5 games this year. They've played 15. 5 games this year. Fernando Mendoza has thrown for more touchdown passes than incompletions. That is 33% of his games this season. He has thrown more touchdown passes than he has incompletions. He is throwing nearly 80% right now in postseason play. Mind you, the record for the best completion percentage in a season is like 77.8% by Bo Nix. I believe Julian Sayin may have broken that this season. I can't remember for sure. And he may not have in the postseason because of what happened with Miami and Indiana in those 2 games, which go figure. They're both in the national championship here. They both were able to stop one of the best quarterbacks in the nation and get pressure on him, which was huge, obviously. But can that happen in this one? Fernando Mendoza has been so great, even under pressure. He's been the best quarterback in the nation under pressure, that if Miami truly does want to affect that accuracy, they're going to have to actually get to him. They're going to have to actually hit him. And I don't mean hit him, when he runs the ball or anything like that. I'm saying hit him and hit him good. And another reason why Fernando Mendoza's accuracy has been so insane this season and in postseason play. In postseason play, 0 drops. His receivers have not dropped a single football in the postseason so far against Alabama, against Oregon. Miami's going to have to change that if they want to win this game. Number 3, will Miami's run game be enough to win? I think something that doesn't get talked about a whole lot, obviously Mark Fletcher has done a fantastic job against Texas A&M, against Ohio State. They did a good job against Ole Miss. They were able to, keep the drives alive and run well. But Miami this season has a negative EPA per rush. Now, if you don't know what an EPA is expected points added. It's essentially kind of a way that you have, like, was this a run that kept us on schedule? And on schedule on first down is 3 or more yards. On second down, it's typically 2 or more yards, especially if you get 4 something on first down. It's expected points added. This means that a running play could actually is more likely, because it's negative for Miami, is more likely to decrease the offense's chance of scoring points. Think of hurting their drive. You often see these on short throws that don't pick up very many yards, early downs, losing yardage on like tackles for loss and stuff like that. Miami has not done a great job of that this season with their running game, but Mark Fletcher has been fantastic at keeping this team in a better pace most of the time, but they still don't have a super successful rushing rate. Miami's rushing success rate, so far in the CFP is 35% against Texas A&M, 54% against Ohio State. That was excellent. And then 32% against Miami. If you want to know what's good and what's bad, typically anything under 40 is considered below average. Anything above 50 is considered above average. So 40 or below is below average. 50 or above is above average. So in the Ohio State game, they were above average in that one, 54%. But in the Texas A&M and the Ole Miss game, they were below average. And all of those games for Miami, they actually had a worse rushing success rate than their opponent, which is huge, right? But Miami, because of Carson Beck being able to keep drives alive, because of the passing game, because of his ability to not turn the ball over or anything like that, and because of the defense, quite frankly, as well, stopping the other team in their passing game by getting a lot of tackles for loss, sacks, and at the very least, pressures on the quarterback. I think they only had one sack against Ole Miss, but still pressures on the quarterback to kind of affect what they were doing there. Because of all that, Miami didn't have to run the ball super consistently against Texas A&M, against Ole Miss, and so that's huge for them. My number four question: will Indiana's defensive line be super disruptive again? I guess should I put it this way? Number four: will Indiana's defensive line be disruptive enough against this Miami offensive line? A key reason that Indiana has won every ranked game. I mean, they've won every game this season, but every ranked game they've played this year is because of how disruptive that defensive line has been. If you watch the film breakdown I did of the defensive line, you see some of the tactics and some of the scheme that they employ in the trenches that make them so dangerous. They've had 3 or more sacks in every game against a ranked team this season. They've had 6 or more tackles for loss in every ranked game this season as well. The only team that was they weren't ranked at the time, but this team did almost beat them, and it was Iowa. Iowa was the team that they almost beat, or that almost beat them. Really, if Mark Gronowski hadn't gotten hurt, they would have had a very good shot. I don't want to say they would have beat them because we don't know, but they would have had an excellent shot at beating Indiana in that game. But because of Iowa and their ability to not let Mark Gronowski get sacked and Tim Lester's game plan, it really, really hindered Indiana's defense to be able to get those negative plays that they do so well against. Now, they still did get 6 tackles for loss against them, so it's not like they completely neutralized them. But two of the things that Iowa did in that game to really take away the negative, plays in the passing game, the sacks and different things like that, and getting pressure on the quarterback, two of the things that they did was they put Mark Gronowski on the move a lot. They didn't necessarily run him every single time, but they put him on the move a lot. They put him outside the pocket. They moved the pocket, whatever they had to do. And that really disrupts what Indiana does, because Indiana is essentially relying on your quarterback to stay still. Aiden Childs actually had a good amount of success early on against Indiana as well. Not for the rest of the game, but early on as well, because Michigan State was doing a lot of the same stuff too, where they put the quarterback on the move. Also, they got the ball out quick. When Mark Gronowski was not under pressure, he got the ball out with 2.38 seconds, an average of 2.38 seconds time to throw. If you can get the ball out before 2.5 seconds, that's excellent. They were getting the ball out on average of 2.38 seconds with Mark Gronowski in that game, and that was huge. That really stopped Indiana, because Indiana does kind of have to stunt and develop their pass rushes a little bit, and so that does take a little bit more time. But because of how many guys they drop into zone coverage, they typically get that time. But it was the simulated pressures that Indiana was running that Mark Gronowski, fifth-year guy, a super smart quarterback, he's seen it all. Even at the FCS level, he was seeing simulated pressures. But because of how smart he was and adaptive he was able to hit those quick throws. And when you go into simulated pressure, you are retreating right away into coverage. And because Indiana's not typically sending 7 or 8 guys, they're retreating right away into coverage. But when that happens, Mark Gronowski can find the spots, find the areas where guys are still retreating. They're not necessarily ready for the pass deflection or whatever it might be, and he is able to pick those things there. He was able to pick those things against Indiana. Now, nobody else has really been able to do it since, so obviously Bryant Haynes has changed some things and made sure that doesn't happen. But I will be very curious to see, does Miami do either of these two things, or does Miami do both of these things? I'm going to be very interested. And my final question, number 5, can Miami's stop? I apologize. Number 5, can Miami stop Indiana's contested catches? Now, this is not something you're going to hear a whole lot about going up into the game, but I think it's one of the most important questions in this game. Indiana's wide receivers have caught 10 of the 13 contested passes in the postseason. Charlie Becker, 5 for 6. Elijah Surratt, 5 for 6. I think it was either Cooper or Williams had the other one, but they didn't catch it. So that adds to it there to be 10 of 13. A lot has been made about the size of the Miami offensive line against the Indiana defensive line. And don't get me wrong, I don't think that's a bad thing to talk about. I do think that Indiana's scheme kind of impacts that a little bit. But when you look at the size of Indiana's wide receivers, they're big, especially Elijah Surratt and Charlie Becker, who they are throwing up these contested catches to. Elijah Surratt, 6'2", 213 pounds. All right. He's not the biggest receiver in the world, but he's bigger than the DBs he's going up against. Charlie Becker, 6'4". Holy cow. That length is amazing what he has on his body there. 6'4", 209 pounds. The DBs that Miami has that are most likely going to be going up against these guys, Xavier Lucas, who is out the first half of the game because of the targeting penalty, which is stupid, but still, he is 6'2", 198, and he's actually the biggest corner that they have, and he's going to be out. Ethan O'Connor is 6'1", 180, and OJ Frederique, I believe that's how you pronounce it. I apologize if it's not. He is 6 foot 185. So if you got Frederique going up against Surratt at 6 foot 185 against 6'2", 213, Surratt's obviously got that advantage. If you got Ethan O'Connor 6'1", 180 going against Charlie Becker at 6'4", 209, Becker's obviously got that advantage, right? A lot of people want to talk about the mismatch of size of a D'Angelo Pons or, the Miami offensive line to the Indiana defensive line. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't talk about those things, but I think this part of the conversation needs to be in there as well. We need to talk about the size disparity and the ability for these Indiana receivers and Elijah Surratt and Charlie Becker to be able to get some of these contested catches. So no question, Miami's look. I'm not questioning Miami's DBs. They're tough. They're physical. They're going to do a great job trying to get up in the grill of these guys. But at a certain point, you only have so much length. You only have so much girth, and the other team has more girth, has more length. Pause. That they are able to really. Can't believe I said that. That they are going to be able to really stop the other team from being able to stop to stop your contested catches. I screwed myself up now, so I will end it there at this point because I said something that I'm rather embarrassed by now. So appreciate y'all being here. Let me know your thoughts on the Indiana Miami game in the comments down below. I can't wait for this game. It's gonna be so much fun. Still leaning Indiana in this game, but overall it's going to be a lot of fun. So thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and tell a friend about the Big Ten Huddle. Look, there are a lot of really good creators out there on YouTube, and one of the best things you could do is just tell a friend about us, right? Because we're out here, we're grinding, we're trying to put our work in and trying to do everything we can. If you find somebody you really actually do like, tell a friend, tell somebody else about them, because more often than not, if you really like them, your friend would probably like them too, and that's going to help us creators to just keep being able to make content for you guys. And football season's almost over, and we're looking for our communities in the off season to stick with us. Hope you're going to be with somebody in that community with me and Zach, and you'll be there with us. So have a good one. We'll see you next time.